Backstage tension was as thick as the heat in Columbia, South Carolina, the kind of tension that settles deep in your chest. Otis Williams and his crew, the Classic Five, arrived at the auditorium only to be met with a jarring sight, a rope running dead center through the crowd, slicing the room in two. On one side, black faces. On the other, white. And for men used to the stage, this was a performance like no other. "You've got to be kidding," someone muttered. They sang anyway, their harmonies defying division, lifting over that rope like a protest in melody. That night, something bigger than music was at play. And all these years later, Otis, now 82 and the last original Temptation standing, is finally pulling back the curtain on the truth he's held close. A secret that may rewrite everything we thought we knew about the rise of Motown's most iconic group. What if everything you admired about the Temptations had another layer? One of pain, power struggles, and quiet resilience? Williams didn't just build a legacy, he survived it. Long before stadiums screamed their name, he was just Otis Miles Jr., a kid chasing echoes of hope in Detroit's buzzing alleys. He left Texarkana for something more electric, and Detroit delivered. Music wasn't just a dream here. It was the currency of survival. You could hear it pulsing from the record shops to the barber shops, city bursting at the seams with ambition. Otis, every note sung was a step away from obscurity and toward something epic. But fate isn't kind without friction. When Otis linked up with David Ruffin, Eddie Kendricks, Paul Williams, and Melvin Franklin, chemistry was undeniable, but so were the clashing egos. David was a volcano, brilliant, explosive, impossible to ignore. Their bond was powerful, but always on the brink. Every rehearsal room became a battlefield of perfectionism. Tempers flared, voices rose. On stage, they were flawless. Cool velvet suits, synchronized moves, and vocals that left audiences breathless. The spotlight made them stars, but the shadows behind it nearly broke them. Behind the scenes, Otis watched it all. The fame, the fallout, the fans who only saw half the story. He was the glue, the negotiator, the man who held it together even as others burned out. Same quiet strength had brought him this far. From the gritty corners of Detroit to Motown's marble floor, his transformation from Otis Miles Jr. to Otis Williams wasn't just a name change, it was a declaration. He wasn't here to play, he was here to lead. And lead he did. Before the world knew the Temptations, Otis had already formed a local act, Otis Williams and the Distance. Their first songs gained traction, just enough to draw eyes, including one pair that changed everything. On an unremarkable evening at St. Stephen's Community Center, as Otis's group delivered harmonies like their lives depended on it, Gordy was in the crowd. Gordy didn't need to say much. After the show, he handed Otis a business card. "Call me." That card was a golden ticket. Within weeks, Otis and his crew were inside the sacred walls of Motown. This wasn't just a label. It was a revolution in motion. Surrounded by titans like Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, and the Supremes, the pressure was intense, but so was the inspiration. Berry Gordy wasn't just a businessman. He was a visionary who saw greatness before it was visible. With a few changes in the lineup and a new name, the Temptations were born. Their ascent was meteoric. Chart-topping hits, sold-out shows, magazine covers. But beneath the sheen, storms brewed. Addictions, rivalries, creative differences. Otis bore witness to it all. He lost friends, navigated betrayals, and buried his grief in studio sessions. Yet he remained stoic, steady, unshakable. Final original, the soul of a group that shaped an era. And with success came luxury. Otis didn't just build a legacy in music. He built a lifestyle that mirrored the heights he climbed. Over the years, his garage has housed everything from classic Cadillacs to sleek black Bentleys. Among his most prized rides was a Rolls-Royce Phantom, a nod to how far he'd come from those Detroit sidewalks. His wrist, luxury timepieces have marked moments of triumph. Rolex Submariners, Audemars Piguet, even a rare Patek Philippe, passed down as a symbol of legacy. But the real crown jewel, real estate. Otis invested in properties from California to Georgia, owning both comfort and equity in the process. He understood wealth wasn't just about spending, it was about preserving. Otis took out layered insurance coverage, protecting not only his health as he aged, but also his artistic assets. His music rights, touring residuals, and intellectual property are all carefully protected under a portfolio of career-based insurance. Masterclass in financial foresight. Unlike many of his peers who saw their fortunes crumble under poor management, Otis diversified early, co-writing deals, even silent stakes in concert promotions. When others faded, he adapted. Let this be a lesson not just in fame, but in strategy. This teaches us that legacy is built not only on talent, but on discipline. Where others chased the spotlight, he studied its wiring. Biggest business move? Retaining partial rights to performance royalties, ensuring income long after the applause fades. Move that's kept him comfortable, relevant, and respected. Today, Otis looks back, not with bitterness, but with a wisdom carved by every stage he's stepped on and every secret he's kept. Story isn't just music history, it's a blueprint for resilience. And still, there are whispers of truths he has yet to tell. Because what if one revelation from Otis Williams could shift the narrative we've clung to for decades? Story picks up with a performance that felt like destiny in motion. A crowded community center, as the band soaked in the last notes of their set, a familiar figure in the shadows was quietly observing. Berry Gordy, already a juggernaut in the industry, stood intrigued. But it wasn't in a boardroom or backstage where the future was sealed. It happened by a restroom. Gordy, sharp-eyed and quick to act, handed over his business card and said something that would echo through history. "If you ever want something different, call me." That moment didn't just open a door, it kicked it wide open. Behind the stage lights and harmonies, trouble was brewing. The distance, the band at the heart of this story, had talent but lacked control over their destiny. Pivotal Betrayal, a hit song sold without their permission, shattered their trust in management. They were stuck, angry and desperate for change. That's when Gordy's offer became more than tempting. It was their escape hatch from a broken system. They reached out. The meeting at Motown with Mickey Stevens was more than business. It was rebirth. What came next was a reshuffling of fate. With Elbridge, Al Bryant, and Richard Street, they abandoned the distance. At the same time, two other talents, Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams, were free agents, reeling from the collapse of their group, the Primes. Together, they formed a new group, originally called the Elgins. A quick copyright check forced another name change. What came next? The Temptations. Their synergy was undeniable. His signature falsetto melted into deep bass lines like magic. This wasn't just a new band. It was a sound the world didn't know it needed. They didn't just arrive, they exploded. Smokey Robinson saw it instantly. He shaped their first hits with laser precision. Acts like My Girl and The Way You Do the Things You Do weren't just chart toppers, they became generational anthems. Behind the glamour, pressure was mounting. Fame is never free. Temptations were constantly evolving. Lineups shifted, tensions flared, and expectations grew heavier by the day. In 1963, the addition of David Ruffin brought a raw edge that elevated their music. Yet that spark came with volatility. The chemistry sizzled on stage but simmered behind the scenes. One of the most powerful moments in their arc came with Norman Whitfield. He didn't just write songs, he re-engineered their identity. The Temptations pivoted from bubblegum soul to gritty conscious anthems. Cloud 9 and Ball of Confusion weren't just hits. They were cultural commentary. This daring leap helped them stay ahead of the curve while their peers faded. It wasn't evolution. It was survival. Still, the toll was steep. In 1971, Eddie Kendricks pursued a solo career, a decision driven as much by exhaustion as ambition. Paul Williams, meanwhile, was facing a darker battle. Struggling with severe health issues and emotional pain, his exit from the group wasn't just heartbreaking, it marked a seismic shift in the group's soul, and then, a devastating loss. Williams, long considered the heart of the group, was suddenly gone. His absence sent shockwaves through the Temptations and devastated his closest friend. The world mourned, but the show had to go on. Even as members rotated like a revolving door, one man held the group together. Every betrayal, every transformation kept the dream alive. But the late 1970s weren't kind. Fans moved on. Music changed. The Temptations flirted with the Philly soul sound, But the magic wasn't easily replicated. Tension and fatigue mounted. But then came a lifeline from the most unexpected place. In the 1980s, Rick James, funk icon and trendsetter, saw something enduring in the Temptations. Their charisma still burned. Their artistry still inspired. He brought them into the studio. The result? Standing on the top. It wasn't just a hit. It was proof that legacy could still evolve. That resurgence led to renewed touring, television appearances, and a new audience rediscovering their timeless appeal. Behind that resurgence was a lifestyle few could imagine. With renewed income came a return to the finer things, multi-million-dollar homes across Los Angeles, Atlanta, and even Palm Springs. One of the group's leaders, now reaping the rewards of decades in music, invested heavily in real estate, building a portfolio estimated at over $15 million by the late 90s. His main property, a gated estate nestled in the hills above Beverly Hills, features panoramic views, a private recording studio, and a vintage Cadillac collection worth nearly $1.3 million. Luxury extended to every detail of their lives. Preferred timepieces included limited edition Rolex Daytonas, Patek Philippe complications, and Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks, symbols not just of wealth, but of taste sharpened by decades in the spotlight. Private jet charters became routine for major tours, with Gulfstreams and Learjets offering comfort and discretion as they traveled between shows and engagements. Even during their quieter years, brand partnerships and catalog royalties ensured steady cash flow. One member, through wise investments in publishing rights and commercial licensing, reportedly saw his net worth climb from under $500,000 in the late 70s to over $12 million by 2005. Today, that estate, now handled by his family trust, generates consistent returns from global streaming and sync placement. But their story wasn't just about resurgence or riches. It was about grit, because just when critics thought the Temptations were done, they refused to fade. They reinvented themselves again. Leaner, wiser, hungrier. New vocalists brought fresh blood. But the foundation remained the same. Harmony, the swagger, the soul. In the documentary world, whispers of a new series based on their behind-the-scenes struggles are already gaining traction. Insiders suggest the series will pull back the curtain on feuds, failed deals, and private pain, all while celebrating their cultural impact. If it happens, it won't just be a tribute, it'll be a reckoning. The world may know their hits, but the backstage truth is a song still being written. Fame, fortune, heartbreak, and healing. Temptations didn't just shape music history, they embodied it, and they're not finished yet. What happens when the stage lights fade and the applause dies down? For Otis Williams of the Temptations, the answer was heartbreak, fame, rebellion, and a string of personal and financial roller coasters that never seemed to end. Just when fans thought they knew the real story, behind-the-scenes drama and buried losses tell a different tale. It wasn't just music that defined Otis's life. It was a constant push and pull between loyalty to the group and personal chaos. By the time Otis married Josephine Rogers in 1961, the same year the Temptations came to life, his world seemed perfectly aligned. A son, Otis Lamont Miles, followed, and success was brewing, but fame came fast and rough. The marriage broke down in 1964, as tour buses and stage lights swallowed what little peace he had left at home. Then came a devastating blow. In 1985, Otis Lamont tragically died in a workplace accident. That loss haunted Otis for the rest of his life. He never spoke much about it publicly, but those close to him say it carved a permanent hollow in his heart. While the world saw a Motown icon, behind closed doors, Otis was trying to keep his life from unraveling. One romantic chapter involved an unexpected engagement to rising star Patti LaBelle. Their bond, formed in a chance meeting at a club performance in Patti's hometown, burned bright but quick. He returned the ring when Otis insisted she give up her music dreams to settle in Detroit. She chose her passion over the promise of a home, and it was a decision that shaped both their lives forever. That failed engagement revealed just how much Otis wrestled with control, ambition, and the instability that fame injected into his personal life. A pattern formed. Flashes of love followed by emotional fallout. He married again in 1967, this time to Ann Kane, a former housekeeper for Ike and Tina Turner. But the marriage ended 6 years later. His third and final marriage to Arliotta Goldie Williams in 1983 brought a stepdaughter, Elon Carter, who later rose to fame as a Playboy playmate. But Otis wasn't done making headlines or enemies. Swing Otis began demanding the spotlight in a way the group had never experienced. He insisted on being driven in a mink-lined limousine with his partner, Tammy Terrell, distancing himself from his brothers in music. Then came a request that tore at the very soul of the Temptations. He wanted the band renamed David Ruffin and the Temptation. It was a bombshell move that ruptured the group's unity. To some, it was ambition. To others, betrayal. This shift wasn't just about ego. It marked the start of deep fractures. Ruffin, in particular, fell into erratic behavior, skipping rehearsals and demanding full transparency of the group's financial records. Otis tried to hold it together, but the foundation was cracking beneath them. Then came the night Ruffin skipped a Cleveland concert just to see his new flame, Barbara Gail Martin. It wasn't just a no-show. It was a message, and it led to his dismissal in June 1968. But the drama didn't stop there. In a moment straight out of a movie, Ruffin crashed the group's next concert in Valley Forge, grabbed the mic from newcomer Dennis Edwards, and belted out "Ain't Too Proud to Beg." It was pure chaos. The band was caught between loyalty and survival. Ruffin continued sabotaging shows during the July tour, sneaking backstage like a ghost of Temptations past. The tension peaked in Gaithersburg, Maryland, where the group nearly crumbled under the pressure. At one point, Otis even considered bringing Ruffin back, but Ruffin never showed up to his own comeback event. It was the final nail. Fame built him up, but his own decisions kept tearing him down. After being locked out of the Temptations, Ruffin turned his energy toward legal retaliation. In October 1968, he sued Motown, trying to break free, but the label struck back. And although they eventually settled, Ruffin was trapped in a solo contract, isolated from the group he helped define. Otis, meanwhile, soldiered on, navigating a business that was both blessing and burden. Today, his estimated net worth sits around $8 million, built from decades of touring, royalties, and calculated reinvestments. Unlike many peers who lost everything, Otis played the long game. His wealth grew steadily, especially post-1990s, thanks to smart licensing of Temptations music and his stake in reunion tours. Over the years, Otis has quietly built a real estate portfolio, owning properties in California and Georgia. His Atlanta estate, valued at over $2 million, includes a home studio and a luxury car garage. Speaking of rides, Otis has been spotted in everything from a classic Lincoln Continental to a modern-day Rolls-Royce Ghost. Watches? He favors understated luxury, Rolex Day-Date President editions, and the occasional Patek Philippe for gala events. But what sets Otis apart is his financial wisdom. Unlike some stars who burn through their fortunes, Otis invested in music publishing, co-ownership of touring rights, and even dabbled in minor equity partnerships with Motown nostalgia projects. His insurance portfolio is robust: health, estate, and performance coverage. Otis reportedly secured a Lloyd's of London policy at the height of his touring years to protect his voice and legs, a rare but wise move in the industry. When legends fade from headlines, their legacy lives on in every smart decision made behind closed doors. From heartbreak to hustle, Otis Williams embodies survival. Emotional scars of lost love, the pain of his son's death, and the betrayal by fellow bandmates never derailed his focus. Instead, they became fuel. Where many artists flamed out, Otis adapted, learned how to turn nostalgia into currency and loyalty into a brand. Today, as new generations discover the Temptations, through films and streaming playlists, Otis still profits, not just in royalties, but in reverence. He's a man who saw the worst of the music industry and still managed to come out with dignity, a legacy, and a bank account to match. The real temptation wasn't fame. It was forgetting who he was when it all began. That's the untold truth behind the velvet suits and harmonies. It's a story of triumph built on heartbreak, of business forged in the fire of betrayal, and of a man who chose survival when silence might have been easier. Otis Williams didn't just sing soul. He lived it. Every lyric, every loss, Every dollar made told a story, and in the end, it was never just about the music. It was about what it cost to keep it playing. What a ride! Glory, heartbreak, and mink-lined chaos. If you love the drama and the deep dives, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more Hollywood legends. Next up, wilder stories. Until then, remember, stars fade, but the legacy of legends like these, timeless.